The first time I showed up, there were maybe 6 of us. 6 people on fixed gear bikes, standing on a corner in Koreatown, sizing each other up the way strangers do when they find each other on the internet, and they aren't totally sure this wasn't a mistake. It was not a mistake. Hey, I'm your host. This is I Took the Long Way, a podcast about life, detours, and somehow still being here to talk about it. Pull up a chair. I've mentioned this in other episodes that I lost my license twice. In Los Angeles, that's not a minor inconvenience. That's a full restructuring of your life. LA isn't built for people without cars. It was designed for freeways and parking structures and the assumption that everyone has somewhere to be and a vehicle to get them there. So I got a bike. Not out of passion, not out of principle, out of necessity. For a while, that's all it was, a consequence with 2 wheels. But here's the thing about riding a bike everywhere in Los Angeles. After a while, you stop seeing it as a punishment and you start seeing the city differently, at human speed. The back streets, the neighborhoods, the parts of LA that don't show up on anyone's highlights reel. I was riding on a regular basis, and somewhere in all that riding, something shifted. I wasn't just getting from point A to point B anymore. And then I found LA Fixed, a forum, a message board for fixed gear riders in LA, posting ride plans, arguing about components, roasting each other's bike builds. A few of us decided we should make it a weekly thing, a Wednesday night ride, and we picked a meetup spot, the intersection of Western and Wilshire, right in the middle of Koreatown. This was the mid-2000s, before all the big glass buildings went up. And back then it was just an open courtyard space and the Western Wilshire metro station. The right kind of corner for a group of people on fixed gear bikes to collect themselves before heading out into the city. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what a fixed gear bike is, a fixed gear has no freewheel, no coasting. When the wheels are moving, your legs are moving. The drivetrain is locked in, direct. There's no disengaging. Some people run them brakeless, pure track bike mode, stopping by resisting the pedals. The whole thing is a little intense, a little impractical, and deeply beloved by a specific kind of person who thinks simplicity is its own form of elegance, or who just thinks they look cool. Both things can be true. The Wednesday night rides grew fast. Teenagers, 20-somethings, 30-somethings like me, all ethnicities, guys, girls, hipsters who could identify a component from across a parking lot, and guys who just wanted to ride hard and didn't care about any of that. The kind of group that doesn't happen on purpose. It just accumulates, one Wednesday at a time, until you look up and you've got a Peloton, a real Peloton. Nobody was slow on purpose. That was the unofficial rule. LA Fixed is where I learned how to actually ride in a group, how to ride in a pace line. The lead rider pulls everyone behind them, blocking the wind, and peels off and drifts to the back while the next person takes the front. You rotate through. Everyone shares the work. It requires trust because you're inches from the wheel in front of you, and you have to believe the person leading is calling out what needs to be called out. Pothole on the left, glass up ahead, car door, all passed down the line like a game of telephone until the whole Peloton knows it's coming. That stuff doesn't sound like much until you're riding a pack at speed in the dark and someone ahead of you goes around something you can't see. Then it's everything. Somewhere in those Wednesday nights I caught the bug, not just for riding, for bikes. I started learning about components, gear ratios, frame geometry, and eventually I built up a complete bike in my living room, an Iro fixed gear grain with mid-tier parts. Put it together piece by piece on my apartment floor. The first time I rode it, a bike I had built up with my own hands, spec'd exactly the way I wanted it, I don't know how to explain what it felt like. There's a specific joy in riding something you made. Every mile on that bike felt like it counted double. I got into Chris King headsets and hubs and learned to track stand at red lights, which is balancing on a fixed gear at a complete stop without putting your foot down. It's a little dangerous in traffic, and it looks cool. I worked on it for weeks. I'm not going to pretend that wasn't part of it. After a while, a few of us became the OGs of the ride, the ones who'd been there from the beginning. I led a few rides, but mostly I like to hang back, stay near the end of the group, and pick up the stragglers. And I know exactly where that came from. I've talked in another episode about being the kid who failed the Army PT run, the one who knew what it felt like to fall behind and watch the group pull away. I wasn't going to let that happen to anyone if I could help it. You fall off the back, I'm coming to get you. And we finished together. We rode everywhere. Koreatown, downtown, East LA, up to Griffith Observatory at night. One night someone said, let's ride up to Santa Anita racetrack and back. And we did. Because why not? When the group was small, 5 to 8 people, we'd stop at Korean barbecue after the ride. I ordered the grilled intestines, as one does, and I was enthusiastic about sharing this experience with my non-Asian riding buddies. But turns out I was the only one who shared my enthusiasm. They happily drank the Korean beer and soju though, no complaints there. When the group got bigger, we'd splinter after the ride. But a core group of us would always end up at Frank and Hank's on Western, a proper dive bar. Park your bikes out front, grab a drink, shoot some pool, play darts, and spend the rest of the night talking about bikes with people who actually wanted to talk about bikes. The ride was the point, but the dinner was the proof. All good things come to an end though. In 2008, I suggested to my girlfriend, my wife now, that we should move to Northern California for a change of scenery. There was just some restlessness that I had. I just couldn't quite put a finger on it. She surprised me though and said yes. So we moved to Oakland. Smart timing, by the way. 2008, right into the middle of the housing crash and the stock market going off a cliff. Man, I was unemployed for 5 months. Great instincts all around. We had one car between the two of us, which meant I was back on the bike out of necessity. Same situation as LA, different city. Some things follow you. I found SF Fixed, a fixed gear forum for the Bay Area. And here's the part that made me laugh. There were some LA Fixed riders on the SF Fixed forum, people I recognized from the threads. New people with some of the same people. New city, new classified section full of parts. I was already connected to people I hadn't met yet. And then I found out there was a Wednesday night ride. Of course there was. MacArthur BART station in Oakland, right down the street from where we were living. I showed up not knowing anyone. Same as Koreatown, and the same thing happened. Within 20 minutes of riding, it didn't matter. The Oakland crew was a bit more committed to the aesthetic, a little more flannel. And I showed up in my rolled up skinny jeans with a messenger bag and my fixed gear and looked around and thought, yeah, I'm one of them. We'd ride through downtown Oakland, over to Alameda, down to the port near the water. Some nights we'd take the path along the bay from Emeryville toward Richmond, right along the shoreline. The sound of waves hitting the rocky beach and the city lights on one side and the water on the other. Or we'd climb. Old Tunnel Road, Skyline Boulevard, Grizzly Peak at night. Oakland at night from elevation is something I didn't expect. You come up over the hill and the whole bay opens up. The bridge is lit, San Francisco across the water. On a bike, you feel the cold air coming off the bay and the burn in your legs from the climb, and the view hits you all at once. The hills eventually broke me. Not me, but my fixed gear. Oakland's hills are relentless in a way LA's aren't. And riding a fixed gear up Grizzly Peak is a form of self-punishment that I don't recommend. So I built up a geared bike. Higher tier parts this time. And I'll tell you, clipping into a geared bike after months on a fixed in the East Bay Hills is suddenly like having wings. You shift down on a climb and your whole body goes, oh, yeah. So we started doing 40, 50-mile rides through the East Bay Hills, out to Walnut Creek and back, just because we could. And then one ride, I have to tell you about this one. I was following a friend on a descent, locked into his wheel, following his line, not really thinking, just riding. And then I looked up and realized we were on the on-ramp of Highway 24, the actual freeway. And ahead of us was a long, steep, wide-open downhill. My friend didn't slow down, so I didn't slow down. I just remembered thinking, okay, we're doing this. Don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Everything clenched. Both hands on the bars, head forward, eyes getting watery from the rushing wind, and the road loud underneath us. We hit the bottom, got off at the exit, pulled up to a stoplight and looked at each other. Dude, that was awesome. It wasn't until I checked my Strava after the ride that I saw the number. 50 miles per hour on bicycles on a freeway at night. I built a cross bike shortly after that for dirt rides because apparently I hadn't learned anything. In 2012, my wife got pregnant, and we did what you do. We moved back to LA to be closer to family, back to familiar streets. And almost immediately, I found another Wednesday night ride, because of course I did. This one was different. All geared road bikes, nice ones. Carbon frames, proper kits, clip-in pedals, and it was a Korean riding group, which, I'll be honest, I hadn't experienced before. LA Fixed was everybody. SF Fixed was everybody. This was specifically Korean riders, and I had never been in a community that looked like me before. That was a different feeling. I remember one ride, we stopped at a rest point somewhere near Griffith, and somebody pulled out some food from his jersey pocket. I don't even remember what it was, and without thinking, the conversation shifted into Korean. Half the group code switching mid-sentence, laughing at something I actually understood without needing it translated. I hadn't realized how much energy I'd spent my whole life translating, not just language, but myself, until I didn't have to for a few minutes on the side of a road. That was a different kind of fast. The routes were familiar. Griffith, East LA, the Koreatown streets I'd ridden 100 times on a fixed gear. But now with the geared bikes, we could go further. West LA, Burbank. Steep hills that would have ended a fixed gear ride just became part of the course. The demographic was different from LA Fixed. More established, some of them. Successful people. But also lost people. Searching people. People figuring things out. Same as any group. Same as every group I've ever ridden with. All there for the same reason. To ride in a group. To find each other on a Wednesday night. To belong to something for a few hours. I see one of the riders from that group at church. He's been going there for years. I didn't know that when I first showed up. Didn't know it for a long time after. You meet someone on a bike on a Wednesday night and you know them in a certain way. And then years later you're at church and you turn around and there they are. That didn't feel like a coincidence. It still doesn't. Three cities, 3 different bikes, 3 different groups of people I found through a forum, and a Wednesday night meetup. In episode 1, I talked about the lone cypress, that tree on the rock in Carmel that's been standing alone for years and years, surviving, persisting, and the grove right next to it, dense and alive and growing into itself because the trees had each other. I spent a long time being proud of being the lone tree, the guy who figures it out by himself, rides alone through LA at night because that's just who he is. But here's what I keep coming back to. Every time life handed me a consequence, lose your license, move to a new city, start over, I found a Wednesday night. Not on purpose, not as part of a plan. I just showed up somewhere and people were already there, and we rode, and dinner happened. And then the next week, I came back. The fixed gear years taught me how to build something with my own hands and trust it at speed. The Oakland years taught me that hills don't beat you. You just have to want it more than you want to stop. The Korean riding group taught me what it felt like to be in a community that looked like me and loved the same thing I loved. And all three of them, Western Wilshire, MacArthur Bart, Koreatown again, were a version of the Grove. Trees holding each other up on a Wednesday night, whether they knew it or not. I was in the drinking years for some of this, the long middle. Those Wednesday nights weren't a cure for anything. Nobody out there knew what was going on with me underneath the surface. But they gave me something real to show up for every week. Something that required my body and my focus and my full presence. You can't be somewhere else in your head when you're riding in a pace line through LA. The road demands all of you. Maybe that's what I needed more than I knew. I don't ride with those groups anymore. That chapter closed the way chapters do, gradually, then all at once. Life moved, seasons changed, the Wednesday nights became something else. But here's what stayed. Not just a love for cycling, something else. The knowledge that I can show up somewhere not knowing anyone and belong there before the night is over. That didn't come naturally to me. I spent a long time telling myself I was fine alone, that needing people was some kind of weakness. An intersection in Koreatown taught me otherwise. To my daughter, if you're listening to this someday, I want you to know that even in the chapters of my life that looked the roughest from the outside, good things were happening underneath. I was building bikes in my living room and riding through LA with people I found on the internet, and staying at the back of the pack to make sure nobody got left behind. That was your dad, even then. A bike started as a consequence, something the DMV handed me when it took away the car, and it became one of the longest relationships of my life. It introduced me to people that I would have never found any other way. It took me up hills I had no business being on, and it got me down the other side. It taught me that you don't have to know what you're building while you're building it. You just have to show up on Wednesday. That's the long way. It's always been the long way. Thanks for listening to episode 9 of I Took the Long Way. Take care of yourselves, and if nobody's told you lately, you're doing better than you think. I'll see you next time.